Cole, front and center, now! The words cracked through the barracks like a rifle shot. Boots froze mid-lace. Conversations died instantly. Every eye turned as Private Daniel Cole stumbled out from his bunk, still clutching his folded blanket. Sergeant Harding was waiting with a sneer that could peel paint. "This," he barked, kicking Cole's duffel so hard it split open, "is what happens when you let professors play soldier." Socks, shirts, even a dog-eared journal spilled across the concrete floor. The laughter from the other recruits was sharp, merciless. Cole just stood there, jaw clenched, while humiliation spread over him like fire. I thought that was the end of it, but Harding wasn't done. He bent down, fished something out of the pile, and held it up between two fingers, the bronze star medal tucked inside that journal. "Whose is this? Yours or your daddy's?" His voice dripped with contempt. "What, you think carrying his trinket makes you one of us?" A ripple of chuckles rolled through the barracks. Cole's chest tightened, but he stayed silent. He didn't give them the satisfaction. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught Ramirez, the quiet kid from Texas, looking away, almost ashamed to watch. That was the first time Cole realized not everyone was laughing. The rest of the morning only got worse. Inspection came, and Harding made sure Cole was last in line. Boots scuffed, bed sheets tugged loose, gear scattered. "Pathetic," Harding muttered loud enough for all to hear. "Men, this is what weakness looks like." Cole felt every word like a punch, but his hands never trembled as he refolded his blanket. His silence wasn't weakness. It was the only armor he had left. At chow, it didn't stop. Corporal Mason, the loudmouth of the squad, accidentally knocked Cole's tray to the ground. Eggs, biscuits, and coffee splattered across his boots. Mason leaned close, whispering with a grin, "Go back to the library, Professor." More laughter erupted from nearby tables. Cole bent down, scooped what he could, and walked back through the silence, carrying nothing but a dented cup of water. He sat at the far end of the table, alone. That's when he felt it. A small wrapped protein bar sliding across the table. Ramirez didn't look at him, just kept eating. It was the first quiet gesture of decency Cole had seen all week. He slipped the bar into his pocket without a word. That night, the barracks buzzed with low conversations and the smell of boot polish. Cole sat on his bunk, cleaning mud from his laces, when Harding strolled by again. The sergeant stopped, leaned down, and whispered so only Cole could hear, "You won't last here, son. Men like you never do." Then he walked off, leaving silence heavy in the air. Cole didn't reply. He just pulled out his journal, opened to a blank page, and wrote 3 words under the shadow of the bunk light. "Endure. Prove them wrong." As lights out echoed through the bay, Cole lay awake staring at the ceiling. Around him the others were snoring, whispering, drifting. He thought about his father's medal, about the shame of being mocked for it, about Ramirez's quiet gesture. A storm of doubt pressed in on him, but under it, something steadier burned. He wasn't here to be liked. He was here to stand, to outlast, to show them that dignity doesn't fold under ridicule. And yet, as he closed his eyes, he couldn't shake Harding's words. Maybe they were right. Maybe he didn't belong. Or maybe, just maybe, the day would come when they'd see him for who he really was. What I never expected was how quickly that day would come. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The rain had been falling since dawn, hammering the training field like it wanted to wash us all out of the Army. We were on our 3rd lap around the perimeter, packs heavier than sandbags, boots sinking in mud. Most of the guys cursed under their breath. Mason didn't bother whispering. "Hey, Professor," he shouted over the storm. "You carrying books in that ruck, or just your daddy's medal?" The laughter came quick, sharp, slicing through the rain louder than thunder. My shoulders burned, my legs screamed, but I didn't say a word. I just kept moving, step after step, water pouring off my helmet. If I stopped, I'd prove him right. If I spoke, I'd lose. So I stayed silent. By the 2nd lap, one of the new recruits, Davis, twisted his ankle on a slick patch of gravel. Harding barked for him to keep moving, but the kid collapsed hard into the mud. No one wanted to break rank, not with Harding watching. I didn't think. I just shifted my pack, hauled Davis onto his feet, and took part of his load across my own shoulders. The weight nearly crushed me, but I kept moving. Harding's eyes cut through me like blades. "Cole," he shouted, "you playing hero now? Think you're Superman." I didn't answer. Couldn't. My chest was already burning, lungs on fire. Mason's voice carried through the rain. "Look at him, trying to show off. He'll fold in 10 minutes. But I didn't fold. By the time we finished, I was shaking, drenched, every muscle quivering. Davis whispered a thank you. Harding gave nothing, not even a nod. Back in the chow hall, the place smelled of wet boots and powdered eggs. Trays clattered, voices bounced off concrete walls. Mason saw me limping in, dripping wet, and smirked. "How's the professor's back? Want me to carry your tray this time?" He kicked the bench beside him and the whole squad laughed. I stood there for a beat, holding my tray, the eyes of 30 men waiting for me to snap or slink away. Instead, I sat at the far end, alone, every bite of food tasteless. A few minutes later, Ramirez passed by. He didn't say a word, just set a bread roll on my tray as he walked past. It was nothing, really, but it was everything. A small, quiet act in a room full of noise. The days blurred into drills, inspections, and sweat. Harding never missed a chance to single me out. Push-ups in the mud while others rested. Standing at attention 10 minutes longer than the rest. Every mistake magnified, every stumble turned into a lesson for the platoon. "This," Harding would bark, pointing at me, "is what happens when you put weak men in uniform." I'd stare straight ahead, fists clenched, heart pounding, but I never cracked. In the silence of the barracks, I kept writing one word in my journal. Endure. Then came weapons assembly. We lined up at the long steel tables, rifles broken into pieces. Harding timed us, walking the line like a wolf hunting prey. 60 seconds, he barked. If you can't build your rifle in 60, you're already dead. I watched Mason fly through his, cocky grin plastered on his face. My hands shook at first, fumbling with the pins. Harding was already leaning over me, sneering. "Clock's ticking, Cole. Maybe you should take notes instead." Laughter echoed again, but something shifted in me. I tuned it out. I thought about the nights I'd studied every manual, traced every diagram. My fingers steadied, muscle memory kicking in. One piece clicked into place, then another, faster, cleaner, smoother. When the timer rang, Mason slammed his rifle down with a smirk. Mine clicked shut half a second later. Harding stared at it, silent for once. He didn't praise me, just moved on. But I caught the flicker in his eyes. He hadn't expected that. That night in the barracks, the guys replayed the day, mocking and joking. Mason bragged about finishing first. No one mentioned that I'd nearly matched him. Ramirez slid onto the bunk across from me, voice low. "You were close, real close." It wasn't much, but it was the first real acknowledgement I'd gotten from anyone. I nodded, kept cleaning my rifle, but inside something shifted. The next morning brought the storm drill. Full gear, sprinting through the rain, climbing walls slick with mud, crawling under barbed wire. Harding prowled the sidelines like a predator. My boots slipped on the rope wall, sending me back down twice. Mason was already at the top, laughing down at me. "Library's closed, Cole. Go home." My palms were raw, rope biting into skin, but I kept climbing. Every slip felt like failure. Every shout felt like a nail in my chest. The third time, something snapped, not in anger, but in resolve. I pulled harder, legs burning, and finally hauled myself over. I hit the ground running, soaked and breathless. Harding didn't say a word, but I saw him watching. The climax came later that evening, during bayonet training. We were paired off, and fate put me across from Mason. The platoon gathered, eyes sharp, waiting for blood. Harding barked, "Engage!" Mason came at me hard, screaming, blade clashing. I stumbled at first, the laughter erupting behind me. He shoved me down into the mud, sneering, "Told you, you don't belong here." My chest heaved, mud filling my hands, humiliation burning hotter than fire. Something inside me roared. I rose fast, drove forward, and with one desperate surge, knocked Mason flat on his back, bayonet at his chest. The laughter died instantly. Silence spread across the circle. For the first time since I got here, they weren't laughing at me. They were staring, shocked. Harding's whistle blew sharp. "Break!" Mason scrambled up, red-faced. But the damage was done. I'd turned it. In front of everyone, the professor had dropped the loudest mouth in the squad. No one clapped, no one cheered, but the silence said it all. That night, the barracks felt different. The usual jokes died quick. Mason avoided me. Ramirez sat beside me at chow. No hesitation this time. Harding still didn't praise me, but when he walked by, he didn't sneer either. He just looked at me, like maybe, just maybe, I was starting to belong. Lying in my bunk, the sounds of the barracks around me, I opened my journal and wrote, "Endure. Fight. Back when it counts." For the first time, I believed it. What I never expected was that the real test was still coming, and it would demand more than silence, more than endurance. It would demand everything I had left. They called it the crucible, and everyone dreaded it. 72 hours of no sleep, constant movement, live fire drills and teamwork that either held or shattered. It was the proving ground, the line that separated those who'd wear the uniform with pride from those who'd wash out. I'd been waiting for it, fearing it, and telling myself that if I could make it through, maybe, just maybe, I'd stop being the guy everyone laughed at. But Mason didn't see it that way. He cornered me the night before, leaning against my bunk with that same smug grin. "Tomorrow," he said, tapping his finger against my chest, "you're going to break. And when you do, I'll be the one carrying your dead weight." The others laughed, some nervously, some cruelly. I didn't answer. I just kept tying my boots. Ramirez, sitting a few bunks down, didn't laugh. He gave me a look, quiet, steady, like he knew Mason's words cut deeper than any blade. The morning came cold and wet, fog crawling low over the training field. Packs were heavier than ever, rifles strapped tight, helmets digging into our foreheads. Harding's voice tore through the mist. "You will move as a unit. You will not leave anyone behind. If one fails, you all fail. Do you understand?" The chorus of "Yes, Sergeant" was loud, sharp. Mine was too, even if my chest already felt tight with dread. The first stretch was simple, miles of rucking across uneven terrain. Mud sucked at our boots, packs weighed us down, shoulders screamed with pain. Mason started his commentary early. "Hey, Professor, keep up. Don't want you crying for story time." He had a way of making even the other guys laugh when they didn't want to. I ignored him, eyes forward, one step at a time. Ramirez was just behind me, and every now and then I caught him muttering, "Keep pushing, Cole. You got this." It was barely audible, but it mattered more than he knew. Hours blurred into exhaustion. When we hit the obstacle course, it was chaos. Low crawls under wire, walls slick with rain, trenches filled with freezing water. Harding stalked the edges like a hawk. I slipped once on a rope wall, hit the ground hard. Mason's voice came immediately. "Told you, can't even climb without a ladder." The platoon laughed, but I forced myself back, up, rope tearing at my palms until they bled. I made it over. Harding didn't praise, didn't smile, but his eyes lingered a second too long. That was enough fuel to keep going. By the second day, sleep deprivation had us all staggering. People snapped at each other, stumbled through drills. Hunger gnawed at our stomachs. We had to build a defensive position in the mud while artillery simulators thundered overhead. Mason kept accidentally shoving extra weight on my side, his smirk never fading. "Carry it, Professor. Use your brain. Figure out leverage or something." My arms shook, but I kept digging. Ramirez whispered, "Ignore him. Just finish the trench." And we did, together. That night, or maybe it was morning, time had no meaning, we faced the live-fire navigation course. Squads had to move under fire, cover each other, keep formation. It was the kind of drill designed to break people. Harding laid it out plain. You stay low, you move fast, you cover your brothers. Anyone pops up and gets tagged, you'll regret it. We moved. Mud in our mouths, sweat in our eyes, gunfire cracking overhead. At first it was chaos. Someone froze. Mason barked, "Move, damn it!" Then tripped himself, dropping his rifle. That's when it happened. His weapon jammed. Under live fire, he panicked. His hands shook, trying to clear it, but he only made it worse. The whole squad was pinned because of him. Harding's voice roared from somewhere unseen. "Fix it or you're dead!" Everyone looked at Mason, then at me. My chest hammered. I crawled to him, ripped the weapon from his hands. He shoved back. "Don't touch my—" "Shut up!" I snapped for the first time, my voice louder than his. I broke the rifle down, mud caked in the chamber, cleared it in seconds. Muscle memory, the same drills I'd done alone at night when no one was watching. The rifle snapped back together, loaded, ready. I shoved it into his chest. "Shoot!" Mason blinked like he didn't know who I was anymore, then fired. The squad moved again. We finished the course, soaked, filthy, but alive. When we regrouped, Harding's eyes were on me. Not Mason, me. He didn't smile, but he didn't sneer either. Just gave a curt nod, then barked for us to hydrate. Mason avoided my eyes. For once, he had nothing to say. But the real moment didn't come until later, during the final stretch. Ramirez slipped crossing a flooded trench, pack dragging him under. His screams cut through the rain. Harding shouted, "Leave him! Move! Forward!" But I couldn't. None of us could. Without thinking, I dropped my gear and dove in. The water was ice, my lungs seized, but I reached him. Ramirez was thrashing, panicked, pulling me down. I kicked hard, forced his head above water, and shoved him toward the edge. Mason and 2 others grabbed him, hauling him out. I was last. My pack, waterlogged, almost dragged me under, but I clawed, gasped, and finally pulled myself free. When I collapsed on the bank, Ramirez was coughing, alive. Harding stood over us, rain dripping from his cap. His jaw was tight, but his voice was steady. That's what it means to not leave a man behind. He didn't say my name. He didn't have to. The platoon knew. They saw. Mason knew too. He didn't mock me again. Later that night, as we limped back to camp, Captain Miller showed up. He rarely came to watch us train, but he was there, waiting under the lights. He walked straight to me. "Cole," he said, voice firm, "you handled that jam fast, saved your squad." My throat tightened. I just nodded. He looked at me longer. "I knew your father, Captain Jonathan Cole. He saved my platoon in Kandahar. You've got his eyes." The air left my lungs like I'd been punched. Mason froze. Ramirez's head snapped up. The whole squad went silent. Harding even shifted his stance, something almost like respect flashing across his face. Nobody spoke. Nobody mocked. For the first time since I got here, they looked at me different. Not as the professor, not as dead weight, as one of them. That night, the barracks felt quieter than usual. Mason didn't say a word. Ramirez clapped me on the shoulder, whispered, "Told you you had it." I lay in my bunk staring at the ceiling, drenched in exhaustion, but inside I felt something shift. For the first time, I wasn't just enduring, I was belonging. What I never expected was how heavy that belonging would feel, and how quickly it would be tested again. By the time the crucible ended, my body was wrecked. Every step felt like walking on nails. My arms ached. My back screamed. But something had changed, and I felt it the moment we marched back into camp. The way the guys looked at me was different. They didn't laugh when I stumbled, didn't whisper when I passed. Even Mason, loud as he always was, kept his mouth shut. That silence was louder than any insult I'd heard before. The next morning, we stood in formation for the debrief. Harding paced the line, eyes sharp, boots crunching against gravel. His voice was clipped, almost tired. "Some of you showed heart out there. Some of you showed you don't belong." He stopped in front of me, staring like he wanted to burn a hole straight through my chest. I braced for the insult, for the same routine he always gave me. But it didn't come. He just looked, lips tight, then moved on. That pause hit harder than any insult. In the chow hall later, the whispers finally broke. Mason slid onto the bench across from me, tray in hand. For the first time, no grin, no smirk, just a quiet, "You saved my ass." I didn't answer, didn't need to. He stared down at his food, chewing slow, eyes fixed anywhere but mine. The rest of the squad noticed. They didn't laugh at him for it. They didn't laugh at me either. Ramirez leaned over and nudged my tray, muttering, "About time he shut up." He grinned and I couldn't help but smile back. Still, part of me didn't trust it. Respect in the Army isn't given with words, it's tested. And the test came sooner than I thought. A few days later, Captain Miller called the platoon together. We thought it was another briefing, another lecture. But this time, he singled me out in front of everyone. "Private Cole," he said, voice steady but carrying weight, "step forward." My chest tightened. Every eye was on me. I stepped out, boots heavy on the gravel. Miller kept his eyes locked on mine. "You showed leadership in the field. You didn't quit when others did. You didn't abandon your men. That's what this uniform demands." For a second, I thought I'd imagined it. A captain, our captain, standing there, recognizing me. My throat was tight, but I forced a reply. "Yes, sir." The words shook, but they came out clear enough. Then came the moment none of us expected. Harding, who'd never spared me more than ridicule, spoke up. "Sir," he said, voice rough. He surprised me too. It was short, flat, but it was real. I turned, and there he was, arms crossed, jaw set, but not sneering, not mocking. He was admitting it in front of everyone. The same man who called me weak was saying I had proved him wrong. The air felt electric. The guys shifted, whispering low. Mason's face burned red, but he didn't argue. Not this time. Ramirez grinned like he'd been waiting for it all along. And me, I just stood there, fighting back a wave of emotions that threatened to drown me. Months of humiliation, every insult, every laugh, all boiling into this one reversal. After formation, things changed fast. Bueno, the barracks, I wasn't the outcast anymore. Ramirez sat next to me at chow openly now, not like it was some secret. A few of the others even asked me questions about weapon maintenance, remembering how I'd cleared Mason's jam. Mason himself stayed quiet, but he didn't shove me in the mud, didn't trip me in line, didn't call me professor. Once, late at night, he walked past my bunk, paused and muttered, "You earned it." He didn't wait for a response, just kept walking. But the biggest change came from within. For the first time, I felt taller when I stood in formation. Not because I'd grown stronger overnight, but because I knew I belonged. I wasn't just enduring anymore. I was becoming part of the Brotherhood. The kind where respect wasn't granted at arrival, but forged in fire. And still, even with that shift, I couldn't shake the thought. If everything could change this fast, it could just as easily be taken away. I'd seen how quickly power flipped, how fragile respect could be. That fear stayed with me, tucked deep behind the pride. It kept me sharp, kept me ready. What none of us knew was that the next trial wasn't just going to test endurance or strength, it was going to test loyalty, and that test would decide who we really were. What I never expected was that in proving myself, I'd be the one the whole platoon would have to lean on. And when that moment came, it would demand more than just strength, it would demand sacrifice. The final weeks blurred together, drills, chow, inspections. But something about the air felt different. I wasn't invisible anymore. The same guys who used to laugh when Harding tore into me now nodded when I passed. Ramirez didn't just sit by me at chow, he saved me a seat. Even Mason had stopped with the smart remarks. He didn't apologize again, but sometimes silence says more than words. One morning before dawn, Harding ordered me to the front of formation. My stomach dropped. Old instincts told me it was another setup, another humiliation. The platoon was stiff and quiet, steam rising from our breath in the cold. Harding stood there with his cap pulled low, eyes locked on me. For a second, I braced for the hit, but instead his voice carried across the line. "Cole," he said, flat and hard, "you're calling cadence today." My chest tightened. The same man who once told me I didn't belong was handing me the rhythm of the unit. My voice had to carry us. My steps had to guide us. For a moment, I froze. Then I drew a breath, shouted the first line, and the platoon answered in unison. The sound rolled down the street, boots striking in perfect time. With every call, my voice grew stronger. By the third block, I wasn't just shouting words, I was leading. Later in the barracks, the talk was quiet but different. Ramirez clapped me on the shoulder, grinning. "You sounded like you've been doing it your whole life." Mason muttered, Not bad, Professor. But there was no edge in his voice, just something that almost sounded like respect. I didn't gloat, didn't throw their words back at them. I just sat on my bunk, polished my boots, and let it sink in. Respect wasn't shouted, it was earned, step by step. That night, as lights went out, I pulled my journal from under the pillow. The bronze star still rested inside. I thought about my father, about the weight of living in his shadow. For weeks I'd carried that medal like a burden, proof of a standard I could never reach. But now as I traced the edge of it with my thumb, it didn't feel like a chain anymore. It felt like a torch. Not his legacy alone, but mine too. The next morning we assembled for flag raising. The sky was painted pink and gray, the kind of dawn that felt heavy with meaning. As the flag rose, every hand snapped to salute. I felt the wind tug at the fabric, saw it catch the light, and in that moment, standing at the front of the formation, I realized something I'd been too blind to see before. All the mockery, the silence, the endurance, it wasn't wasted. It was the forge. Every insult had hammered me into steel. I lowered my hand slowly, the flag snapping in the breeze above us. Ramirez caught my eye, nodding once. Even Harding gave me the smallest glance, something almost like approval. For the first time, I wasn't fighting to belong. I already did. And as I closed my journal that night, I wrote the last line of this chapter. Dignity survives the storm. Brotherhood is forged in it. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next chapters of this journey. The image that will stay with me forever is this: a line of young soldiers, boots planted firm, eyes steady, the flag rising slow against the morning sky. The wind caught it just right, snapping sharp, filling the silence like a drumbeat. And in that silence, every man and woman stood taller, not because of orders, not because of fear, but because in that moment we belonged to something greater than ourselves. Even Harding, the sergeant who had once cut me down with every word, gave me a single nod, small, almost nothing. But in that nod was an entire history of trials, grudges, and finally respect. It was the kind of moment you don't speak about because speaking cheapens it. You just feel it, and you carry it. Looking back, the lesson is clear. Prejudice, humiliation, doubt, those are the fires every soldier walks through. Some are burned up in it, others come out forged. I learned that silence isn't weakness, it's discipline. That dignity isn't given, it's earned when you refuse to quit. I learned that brotherhood is built not in comfort, but in struggle, when one soldier decides not to leave another behind. And I learned that actions, quiet, steady actions, speak louder than any insult, any mockery, any threat. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And in the military, that strength isn't just for you, it's for the one standing beside you. If this story struck a chord with you, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Share your own battles, your own lessons, down in the comments. Hit the like button if you believe in the power of resilience and respect. And subscribe so you won't miss the stories still to come. Stories of grit, honor, and the unbreakable spirit of soldiers who refuse to back down. Until next time, stay strong, stay steady, and never forget, you are not alone in this fight.